لقد كان لكم في رسول الله أسوة حسنة لمن كان يرجو الله واليوم الآخر وذكر الله كثيرا.
All praise be to Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate, and peace and blessings be upon our Prophet Muhammad and all the prophets of Allah who are the prophets of Islam since the time of Adam to the time of Muhammad. And this episode, I welcome you again to your program with the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. This session will be about how the Prophet treated non-Muslims. Prophet Muhammad is not only a prophet to the Arabs or to Indians or whatever, or to the Muslims, quote unquote, but to all humanity. Allah chose him to be Khatam al-Anbiya, the seal of all prophets. Believing in him requires believing in all the prophets before him. We believe as Muslims that all prophets came up with Islam, with the message of submitting to Allah, the only true God, which is the message of all prophets. Here we'll see how the Prophet ﷺ treated people he invited to Islam. Allah, when he talked about Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, said, as I mentioned many times in this program, mercy to the worlds, not to the Muslims, not to the Arabs, not to a specific group of people, to the whole world. Okay? He used to give da'wah with kindness, with patience. His aim was to save people from hellfire. This is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, starting with your own close relatives, وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ الْأَقْرَبِينَ. The Prophet ﷺ was so concerned for the guidance of humanity, of people, that he was really hurting himself to the extent that Allah said to him, فَلَعَلَّكَ بَاخِعٌ نَفْسَكَ عَلَى آثَارِهِمْ إِن لَّمْ يُؤْمِنُوا بِهَذَا الْحَدِيثِ أَسَفِي. Are you going to kill yourself because they're not believing in that? إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ. You cannot guide those whom you love. It's indeed Allah guides those whom He chooses. But the Prophet ﷺ was given the best example by fulfilling the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when Allah said to him, ادعو إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة وجادلهم بالتي أحسن. Call for the way of your Lord with wisdom and good speech, and even when you debate with them, in the best way. The Prophet ﷺ, through all the suffering that he went through in Mecca for about 10 years, he has been really put under siege for 3 years, and his companions, the people in Shi'b Abi Talib, those people who accepted him. He was ridiculed, he was beaten, his companions were killed. All aspects of persecution he went through, to the extent that he went to Taif. Even the people of Taif, for 10 days, he suffered a lot. He had to leave Taif. Allah sent the angel of mountains to him, saying, Muhammad, I am the angel of mountains. Allah sent me to you. If you order me, I'll bring these two mountains in Mecca together and kill everybody there for your sake. He said, no. Look at the mercy. I have great hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring out of their offsprings people who will believe on Him alone. And this is what happened. We had Khalid, we had Ikrimah, we had Safwan, we had Abdullah ibn Sarh, we had Amr ibn al-As. I mean, you name it. All those, because the Prophet ﷺ was having the aim not of hurting people, of persecuting people, of seeking revenge against those who hurt him, but rather bring guidance to them. When Al-Tufayl ibn Amr came to him, it's a long story, I'll just make it short because of the time of the program, and his people did not accept. He said, O Prophet of Allah, make dua against my people. I went to them and they didn't want to accept. Abu Hurairah, in another narration, was with him. Abu Hurairah said, no, Prophet of Allah, be merciful to them. The Prophet raised his hand and said, Allahumma hdi dawsa. Oh Allah, guide those. He didn't, oh Allah, wipe out those. Instead, showing the mercy in his message. And this is an example for us in treating non-Muslims as well, because we have a responsibility of inviting others to Islam, to the truth, in a time where there is huge propaganda against Islam and Muslims. The Prophet ﷺ had many occasions in which he showed gratitude to those people who helped him, though they were not Muslims. Among them was Al-Mut'im ibn Adi. When the Prophet ﷺ came from Taif, he sought refuge in Mecca. Nobody would protect him. Al-Mut'im ibn Adi brought his children and said, I'll be protecting Muhammad to deliver his message, although he did not accept in him. In the Battle of Badr, when the Meccans came, invaded Medina, and wanted to kill the Prophet ﷺ and his companions, and he captured 70 of them, he said, if Al-Mut'im was alive and he would ask me to release those, I would have released them for his sake. Subhanallah. When the Prophet ﷺ came to Medina, the Medina welcomed him, the Ansar welcomed him. He was having the upper hand. He realized from his advent to Medina, there were Jews, there were Christians, there were polytheists, even hypocrites. And he tried to treat all of them with justice, with fairness. What he started with was the Pact of Medina, the Treaty of Medina, in which he would, in that agreement, would safeguard the rights of everybody, regardless of their own religion or their own way of life, give them freedom to practice their religion as long as they adhere to the Treaty of Medina. The Prophet ﷺ welcomed the Christians of Najran when they came to Medina, and they came to debate with him to find out whether he was a true prophet or not. They were not coming as guests, but other to challengers to the new faith. They were raising many misconceptions in front of all the people of Medina, and the Prophet ﷺ was responding to them. What he did, he accommodated them. He hosted them in the masjid, because that's the only place that would accommodate them. He gave them the liberty to practice their own forms of worship in the masjid. He allowed them to go back to Najran without believing in him, without accepting Islam, until later on they accepted Islam. He didn't force them, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, لا إكراه في الدين قد تبين الرشد من الغي. Let be there no compulsion religion. The truth has been distinguished from falsehood. So why you would force people to accept the truth? You guide them to the truth, and you leave it to their own choices. The Prophet ﷺ, even in wartime, warned against killing older people, children, women. And if you see what's going on in our nowadays world of human rights, the court of justice, etc., how children are killed in thousands in Palestine, in Kashmir, in Burma, in many parts of the world, with no respect for any rights, not even for those poor children and women. The Prophet ﷺ warned against disturbing the monks and the priests who are worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in their own monasteries. He warned against hurting the people who live within the Muslim communities. And this is why the Jews and the Christians enjoyed their golden era in practicing their religion during the time of dark ages in Europe, where there are light ages in the Middle East, in the Muslim world. To the extent that the keys for the churches in Palestine, in Jerusalem, were given to Muslim families to take care of. They were following the example of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Umar al-Khattab, when he went to Palestine, he was showing great tolerance to people of other religion, to the extent that he refused to pray in the church, saying, if I pray in the church, this my church be taken by some Muslim later on as a place of worship and take you away from your church and turn into the masjid. He chose to pray in a vacant land that was turned later on into the mosque of Umar. The Prophet ﷺ, after all the persecution that he received from the people of Mecca, when he went back to them with an army of 1,000 people surrounding Mecca, they said, "What are you going to do with us?" They felt helpless. Many of them ran away, afraid of facing the Prophet ﷺ and this army. They said, "Go free, I forgive you." Subhanallah. The Prophet ﷺ forgave them for not having in mind what they have done to him and to his companions. They even chased him to Medina and killed his companions in Medina. They did all evil against him. And he said, "Idhabu fa'antum at-talaqa." Go, you are free. So you go and you are free to choose the best way for you, the way of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and to think with your mind, not to follow the propaganda and the misconceptions that are raised about Islam and about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whom Allah chose to the best example for mankind. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
لقد كان لكم في رسول الله أسوة حسنة لمن كان يرجو الله واليوم الآخر وذكر الله كثيرا.